Well, these beautiful bluish purple flowers that you see actually belong to the jicama plant. And if you think they look a lot like a pea, you would be correct because these are actually a legume. And so that's why they have these nice flowers. Now you'll recall earlier that we had talked about the jicama, and the edible portion of this plant is actually the starchy root. The leaves, the flowers, and the bean pods that they set aren't edible, and we're actually growing this for the root. But we have a lot of leaf mass here right now, and this has actually been a very good vine for us. It's filled in a lot of area, and not much has bothered it. If you look at the foliage here, overall, there's not a lot of bug holes, there's not a lot of disease or anything like that, and this has been a very pretty vine for our garden. Now, one of the things about this, it's a very large vine, and one thing that we found out didn't work with the jicama is, remember the jute that we used for our trellis? And I said that it's good, it's biodegradable, and it is. Unfortunately, this is so heavy that our jute biodegraded a little too fast, and so our trellis kind of collapsed on us, but this just kept on climbing. So if you're going to grow jicama, you probably want to go with something a little more sturdy than something like jute. Now, because it is just about time for frost, we're going to go ahead and harvest our jicama. Now, actually, jicama can take 5 to 9 months to grow a very good sized root on it going from seed. So we may not have much to harvest, but we're going to go ahead and take a look anyway. Now, in order to harvest, basically you've got to cut away your plant, and we've got quite a bit of plant here to cut away before we start digging up the root. And I've kind of gotten started, but we want to take just a little bit more out here and come on down. Now, down here at the bottom is our root where we want to dig, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that off right like that, and we'll get that vine out of the way. And then we'll go ahead and dig that out. Now you want to start back because jicama roots can actually grow to be quite long. In fact, some varieties can grow up to 6 feet long. Now we're hoping that ours is not going to be that long when we dig it out, but you want to start back kind of like you would with potatoes so that you don't hurt your root. Now if you look here down at the base, see we've got quite a bit of root. So I'll continue digging on this and we'll see if we can get it out of here. Okay, well, we've finally gotten it dug out, and as you'll see, they're actually very small because our season isn't quite long enough. We'll probably go ahead and leave some of our other plants and see if we can get these to be any bigger. But the part that we would actually be wanting to eat would be these little tuberous knobs right here. That would be the jicama. And you would just peel that and then eat it. But if you've seen it in the grocery store, you might recall something that was more along the size of a turnip or something like that. So here they're very small. Now there is a way that you can get jicama to be a good size with only about 3 months of a growing season, which would be here, and that would be to plant some of these smaller ones in the ground in the spring instead of going from seed. So that would probably be the way to grow jicama here if you wanted to harvest it and eat. Now, it's probably not going to be a crop that we'll harvest here very much, more of a novelty item, but the actual vine is a very nice vine, and you might want to grow that just for the nice leaves. Well, we actually do have a crop to harvest in our garden that is ready, and that's our Chinese wintermelon. And so let's go do some more harvesting. Well, the vines have started dying on our Chinese wintermelon, and we've got some here that aren't going to be ready to harvest. Now, we showed you these earlier, and you can remember the green skin and the fuzz on them, and to check and see if they're ready, you do like a pumpkin, and if you can pierce the skin of it with your fingernail, then it's not ready to harvest. But we do have some melons that are ready to harvest, and we've got a big one right over here. Now, again, if you look at it, it's lost that green color. It's kind of gone to white, and it's also lost its fuzz. Now, this white color on it is kind of a waxy, chalky substance, and that's where this melon gets its other name. It's also known as a wax gourd, and you can tell why. And this actually just rubs right off of the gourd. And if we check this with our fingernail, you'll see how I can't pierce the skin. So this one is actually ready to harvest. So we'll go ahead and harvest that and bring it over here. Now, these can actually be used cooked, or they can be eaten raw, and we'll slice one open so you can see what it looks like. Now, these will actually store very well. If you keep them in a cool, dry place, they can store from 2 to 6 months. But you don't want to leave them sitting out in the patch too long once they're ripe, or else they will go ahead and rot on you because of the hot weather. Now, here we've got inside, and we would go ahead and clean this out, and then the part that we would eat would be this here. And actually, this has a consistency much like a cucumber. It's very watery, and a lot of times this can be pickled, fixed with stews, or they can be eaten raw. Now, it has just a faint cucumbery taste to it, so you might want to try growing some Chinese wintermelon in your garden, because we actually got a nice crop of them.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.